Hey guys, I am going to teach you how to teach ACT English. Easiest section on the ACT to raise your score. I've had students go from 17 to 35, and up 18 points on this section. Last few years, my students have averaged 10-point jumps using everything I'm going to show you in this video. 4 major steps. 1, you're going to memorize 55 plus 50 plus grammar rules in a grammar rule packet. You're going to apply 8 techniques throughout the section, which this video will teach you. Complete a grammar workbook. You can just do one of them. Erica Meltzer's ACT English or College Panda's ACT English workbooks are the best. 4, practice the rules and techniques on 5 to 15 time ACT English sections from real tests and do an in-depth review of wrong answers after each section. There's a grammar packet. It's got 50 plus grammar rules in there. You need to memorize these actively. Passive memorizing, by contrast, is just reading the packet over and over quietly to yourself. It creates familiarity. You start to see things you think, oh, I've read that. I know it. You don't know it, actually. You don't know it until you can retrieve it from memory. That's how you have to study, retrieving from memory. So you can make note cards, or you can cover up the rules with your hand or with a sheet of paper, look away, and see if you can say the rule by heart from your head. Then look back, check the sheet, see if it's right. And do that over and over until you know it. When my students try to learn this passively, they don't learn the rules. Not until they finally start to use an active method do they get it down cold. And when you have these rules memorized, now you can do it over weeks, months. But once you have them, you're going to be scoring easily in the 30s. Now, how do you get to 36? That's where these 8 additional key techniques come in addition to the grammar rules. When you begin a passage, pay attention to the title of the piece. A lot of questions actually, or some questions, enough, actually require you to have a grasp of what's happening in the passage. A lot of times on English passages, the first couple paragraphs, you don't know what they're talking about. It's not really clear. When you read the title, it gives a context to everything. It's a really good thing, first thing to pay attention to. And I'll often have students underline it when they start a passage. Now, without training, students will jump to the underlined portions and just try to read around the little underlined bit and try to get all the answers that way. A lot of questions require you to read all the way to the end of the sentence, sometimes 3 lines below, or to really understand the whole paragraph or the whole piece. So to take in the story, to read to the end of the sentences, you want to read the whole paragraph, then do the questions in it. Then do the next paragraph, then do the questions in that. You go through paragraph by paragraph. Read the paragraph first, then do the questions in it. You grasp the story better this way. So those couple subtle questions where you actually have to know what's going on in the story, you get those right too. This is how you get a 36. 2 types of questions on English, grammar and rhetoric. Grammar, it's just questions about those 50 plus grammar rules. The rhetoric questions, they're longer, they're a little wordier. They're asking you not about grammar, but, hey, what decision should the writer make here if they're trying to convey X? On grammar questions, questions 6 and 7, those are grammar questions. 8 and 9, those are a little longer, wordier, those are rhetoric questions. 6 and 7, you want to cover the answers and come up with a prediction. And then once you have a prediction, you can show yourself the answers. Coming up with a prediction prepares your mind to really think about what this question is asking and what's the right answer and why. And then when you reveal the answers to yourself, the right answer just is a way of popping out, jumps off the page at you. The wrong answers, by contrast, you don't even spend much time thinking or worrying about them. What most students do by contrast is they don't know, they start the question, they don't know, they just look at the answers and they try to read through all 4 answers to find the right one. The problem is the 3 wrong answers were written in a really intentionally deceptive way. So if you spend a lot of time thinking about them and trying to see if they might be right, they throw you down all these thought loops and dead ends. And you get really confused and you start wasting time. The time you spend confused on a question is time wasted. Forming a prediction helps you do the thinking up front without getting tricked by the wrong answers. And then when you show yourself the answer is the right answer, just as a way of popping out. And to give you an example of this, take a second right now and just look all around the room you're in. And just notice anything that has the color brown. Color brown, color brown, color brown. Now, if you think about it, you just probably looked at 10 different shades of brown, and you might have called stuff that was ochre, or, even yellowish, or whatever, a little grayish. You might have called it all brown, because your brain is looking for what's brown. Now, if I ask you what was green, you wouldn't have any idea. And there's something about prepping your mind for what it's looking for that has that then start to pop out. And when you can prepare yourself with what you think the answer should be, it kind of contributes to help the right answer just pop out. Before, my students have gotten in the habit of predicting. They'll get a bunch of questions wrong in the homework passage or the section. And then we'll go do those questions together during our tutoring session. And I make them redo the question. I make them predict. And then when they predict, they kind of just instinctually get it right. And this happens like 9 out of 10 times. So it's an incredibly important habit to predict. And you want to cover the answers with your hand, because it's just too tempting to look at them and not do the work of coming up with a prediction. If you cover the answers and then only reveal them once you have a prediction, you ensure that you don't skip any steps and try to go the easy way out and not have to come up with a prediction. Once this becomes a habit, you start to get bulletproof on this section. How to cross out wrong answers is really important, actually. Most students, let's say they decide answer choice B is wrong, they cross out B, cross out the whole answer. I encourage students to cross out the specific part of the answer that makes it wrong. If there's words that make an answer wrong, cross out those words. If there is punctuation that makes an answer wrong, underline it. You want to underline the punctuation that makes it wrong instead of crossing it out, because if you cross out a comma or a period, once you've crossed it out and then you come back to it later, you forget if it was a comma or period, and you can't even see because you crossed the whole thing out. So you want to underline punctuation that makes an answer wrong. And this forces you to hone in on the specific part of the answer choice that makes it wrong. So you're thinking in a much more precise way than just kind of looking at B and thinking, I don't know, I don't like it. If you cross out the word then in B, you get real clear as to exactly why that answer is wrong, exactly what part of it makes it wrong. You're just thinking in a more specific way. Another reason why crossing out the part of the answer that makes it wrong is useful is we've all had the experience where you crossed out an answer and then later discovered it was right. So we don't actually totally trust our crossouts. So you might cross out A, and then read B, and then read C, and then read D, and you're still not sure, and you go back to A, and you reread the whole thing, you redo your whole thought process on A. You wait, why is this one wrong? Why do I think it's wrong? Oh, okay. Whereas if you just cross out the part of the answer that makes it wrong, you glance back at the answer, and you know right away, oh, okay, yeah, the word then, or, the lack of comma in D after wilderness, whatever it is. You leave a specific written record of your thoughts. You cross out the part of the answer that makes it wrong. So you don't have to redo your thought process and you go back and look at that answer again. You know right away why you thought it was wrong. We talked about predicting on grammar questions. Cover the answers with your hand, predict, then reveal the answers. Rhetoric questions are different. They are longer and wordier, and they're asking about, basically, how should the writer try to tell his story. There's going to be one or two key phrases in a rhetoric question that tells you exactly what the question is looking for. This is how you predict on a rhetoric question. You don't cover the answers with your hand. You underline the one or two key phrases in the question that tell you exactly what the right answer must do, and then you look at the answers. These questions get crystal clear once you start honing in on the one or two key phrases in the question that say exactly what the right answer must do. Whenever a question refers to the passage as a whole, you're going to predict by looking back at the title. You want to look back at the title, and also, there's probably going to be a key phrase in the question, since it's a rhetoric question that says exactly what the right answer must do. But also go back and look at that title. You can often tell the entire answer just from reminding yourself what the title was, and then the answer about the passage as a whole gets really clear. Timing is so important as you take the test. A lot of time pressure. You got to know if you're on track. So let's say it's 10:27 in the morning right now and you're taking this English section. You've got 9 minutes per passage in English at regular time. So add 9 minutes to the clock and write it down. 10:36 is the time you want to finish this passage by. And now you got a time to try to beat. And let's say you finish the passage in 7 minutes at 10:34. You know you just earned yourself 2 minutes of cushion. So that if a later passage takes more time, you know it's okay because you've built up a time cushion by finishing some of the earlier passages quicker. You got to track your time as you go through the section. Otherwise, you end up surprised. You end up surprised at the end, thinking you had more time than you do, or you end up rushing when you didn't need to. Keep track of the time by writing it down when you're going to finish the passage by. 7. There's a phrase that peak performers use in fields where you have to move really fast. The U.S. Marines, they constantly repeat this mantra to themselves. Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. They're in gunfights. Their lives are on the line. Incredibly high stakes, intense situations where you gotta move quickly. And yet counterintuitively, they're constantly telling themselves how slow to go. Telling yourself to go slow, slow is smooth, reminds you to just take correct steps. When you rush, you screw up the steps. You make mistakes and then you end up confused. And it's the time you spend confused on the test that you actually waste time. So by reminding yourself to take correct steps, go a little slower to make sure you do, you actually end up more certain of your answers and spending way less time confused, and you end up going quicker, which is why smooth is fast. It's interesting. Alain Prost was probably the best race car driver, maybe in the 70s and 80s in Formula One, I think. And he has this interesting quote. He said, basically when I'm driving, when I look fast, I'm not smooth. I'm going slowly. When I look slow, I am smooth and going fast. Same idea. This guy's flying around turns 200 miles an hour, and he's so intent on actually doing his process slowly because he knows that's what helps him go the quickest. He doesn't make any mistakes that way. Conor McGregor, UFC fighter, got it tattooed on his arm. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. He needs to remind himself. Because under pressure, professionally trained fighters coming at you, it could kill you. And you're reminding yourself to move slowly. Go slowly as you make your decisions. So you take correct steps. Chris Voss is, used to be the chief FBI hostage negotiator, and he'd say there would come a key moment in the negotiation when a beginning negotiator would want to rush. That the hostage taker is going to give up the hostages. Okay, let's move. Let's get this done. And he'd say that's the moment you relax. Relax into it. Because it's the delay that saves time. And when you relax in those moments, let yourself go a little slower than you think you should. He said the negotiation would conclude so much quicker than anyone ever expected when they chose to basically go slow as smooth as fast in those moments. So slow as smooth as fast, the mantra. You want to train your students to constantly repeat to themselves so that they don't rush and make mistakes and get confused while they go through the test. It's a fascinating moment in this movie, The Town. It's Ben Affleck movie from 2010. And they're robbing a bank, and this woman at the bank has been asked to open the safe. And you're going to notice there's two voices that kind of show the two voices that we all have in our head. There's one bank robber who's telling her, hurry up. He's rushing her. She starts screwing up when she tries to rush. The other bank robber steps in and says, hey, as you open this safe, relax. Take your time. Take a breath. Basically saying, hey, go slow. And when she goes slow, she does it correctly, and she opens the safe right up. All of our students have that first voice. Hey, hurry up. You gotta rush. Let's go. You're running out of time. And we need to coach them to have the second voice of, hey, relax, take your time. And they actually do a lot better once they're willing to do that. So I want to play this scene. It just kind of shows it in a really alive, vibrant way because it's a really intense scene. Don't stop! You stay fucking front of yours? Let's go! Fast! Okay. Breathe. So I just thought that was a really scene where the woman, she learns to go slow is smooth and smooth is fast, and then she can open the safe. We've all got the two voices of those two different bank robbers in our head. We need to amplify the voice which says, hey, relax, take your time. Students are going to do way better when they learn to do this. Lastly, I use this phrase, breathe while you bubble. Every time you bubble your answer on the test, take a deep breath. Do it with me now. Deep breaths are bizarrely contagious. It's like whenever someone mentions one, we all remember, oh yeah, I'm actually not breathing. When you're taking a test, most people, if you're not trained yet, you're hunched over, you're stressed, you're breathing really shallow, and you're not getting enough oxygen to your brain and your blood. Your brain uses 20% of the total oxygen and blood in your body. Sometimes as much as 25% of the oxygen that you breathe. So by taking a deep breath in every question, there's 215 questions on the ACT. You end up taking 215 deep breaths during the whole test. It's amazing. At the end of the test, you're not tired. Now, studies show that deep breathing increases the flow of cerebral fluid in your brain. And cerebral fluid goes around and it cleans up all the toxins and the waste products that your brain cells produce. There's no time that your brain cells are working harder than in a 4 to 6 hour standardized test. They're producing a lot of waste products when they're working that hard. Think of your muscles producing lactic acid or sweat, producing a lot of waste products when they work really hard. So your cerebral fluid needs to come through and clean all this up. And I think this is why when I do deep breathing as I take an SAT or an ACT, I'm totally not tired at the end. And my students have found this for themselves too once they finally do it. Total difference maker. Another thing is oxygen in your blood is alkaline. Carbon dioxide is CO2. When you're not breathing as much, you have more CO2 in your blood. Your blood tilts a little more acidic. And the amygdala, the fear center of your brain, actually activates a lot more when your blood gets a little more acidic. So you're more prone to anxiety, fear, irritability. By contrast, when you have enough oxygen, which you have to do by over-breathing actually, when your blood shifts a little more towards the alkaline side of the spectrum, you're going to feel calm and grounded. You have good energy and a good focus, but you're relaxed, you're grounded. Breathing is a massively underappreciated technique during a test. So teach your students, breathe while you bubble. It's an unusual technique. It takes them a while to take it on. So just keep emphasizing it week by week. And then when they truly start to do it, and I mean 100% of the questions, not 30%, they'll see a huge difference. They'll really notice it. And I say not 30% because in truth, for a while your students are trying to learn this, they'll say, yeah, I did the breathing. They're really doing it on like 30% of the questions. And I'll always say to them, imagine living in a house where the builders hammered in all the nails just 30%. They didn't hammer them in all the way. The house is going to fall over. You can't do anything 30% and know how it's really going to work. You have to go all the way. So train them to take a deep breath on every single question. All right. Those are the key 8 techniques. In addition, you want to complete a grammar workbook. These 2 books are the best. Erica Meltzer's ACT English or College Panda ACT English. Lastly, practice these techniques on 5 to 15 real-timed ACTs. Review the wrong answers in depth and what's causing them. Is it sloppy technique among those 8 techniques I just taught you? Maybe they don't totally know the grammar rules yet. Maybe they need to do more active testing on them. Maybe they have timing anxiety and they need to self-coach themselves better. Dig into those wrong answers, see what's really causing them. Lastly, track the score progress. Actually, I'll get to that in the next slide. When you review wrong answers, have the student self-check their own answers as part of the homework. They go to the back of the book. They see how many questions they got wrong. That's not something to do during the session or for you to do in your own time. Teach them to mark an X next to any wrong answer and avoid writing in the correct answer yet. This way, during the session, when you try the question again, you can retry it and you can see their thought process as they go through the question. And they don't have the right answer staring at them as they try to think. When you got the right answer there, you can't see them actually work and struggle to figure it out again, which lets you debug kind of the wrong turns they're taking in their thought process. Ask them what questions they got wrong. Go to those questions, look at them together, have them cover the answers and predict. Have them underline the parts of the answers in grammar question that make them wrong. You can do this for all 4 answers in the question. Have them cross out the exact words and rhetoric questions that make those answers wrong. Having them really dig into the wrong answers this way forces them to get really precise about exactly why each answer is right or wrong. Lastly, track the scores. So you're going to have a spreadsheet that looks like this. Make sure when you start with them, get the very first ACT they take and get those scores in. You want to know their baseline. When they go take a real test, you're going to put in the best score they've had by section. And as week by week, as they're doing practice sections, or if they go take a real test, put in their very best section on practice section. This starts to give your student a sense of their potential. Tracking scores is also good. Students forget how much progress they've made, so you can actually congratulate them for the progress they've made. And it's also good to remind students about the progress that truly has been happening from the tutoring, because this process can be long and hard and slow, and people can remember how far they've actually come. And by tracking the scores, you can remind people of all the progress that's happened. And the very last thing, this holds you and the student accountable. Like, there's a phrase, what gets measured improves. By measuring the scores, everyone's attention is really on the scores and what the hell is actually making a difference. Focusing on those things so you can make the real changes each week that genuinely lead to score increases. So that's it. Thank you so much.